Today we're going to be looking at practicing some color combinations of warm color and cool color concentric circles for our Kandinsky project. Of course, the first thing we always need to do is put the name, our name, at the top of our paper and your class code so we know which class you are in. For the first one, we're going to be doing warm colors, and with our neon colors we have about 5 different colors in our color set that we can work with. You want each of these circle patterns to be different. They will all use your warm colors, your pinks, your oranges, your yellows, but then they will need to be in a different order every time you do it. So for example, I'm going to do my first one pink, and then yellow, and then orange. So that means that I cannot do another pink, yellow, and orange on my paper because I've already used this pattern of pink, yellow, and orange, and I don't want to repeat that anyplace else. I'm trying to come up with lots of different colors. Now I could do it in a different color order. So what if instead on the next one I start with pink on the outside, because this might look a lot different. This is a lot more pink that shows up on here versus the little tiny dot that's in the center of this one over here. And then I do orange, and I'm using a different color orange this time, and then I do yellow. So I've still used a pink, an orange, and a yellow, but you can see those two things look very different from each other once I get them on the paper in a different color order. You're going to try and come up with as many color patterns in that warm area as you can. I finished with my warm colors. You can see I get some little pieces of the oil pastel in there. You want to be careful not to go like this because you'll smudge your oil pastels, but you'll have to tap it on the table to get those off. Now we want to work on the cool colors on the bottoms, our greens and our blues and our purples over here. Sometimes it helps me too before I start coloring to kind of lay out my idea with my oil pastels, and then I can pick them up and start filling in those circles. And I can always double check to make sure I haven't already done that pattern someplace else before I start coloring things in. We're going to do the same thing on the cool colors that we did on the warm colors up above. We're going to see how many different color pattern combinations we can come up with in the 6 that were provided on here, because we will be using these on our final piece of artwork. So now that I have my warm colors and cool colors completed on my worksheet, I can look at adding those over to my artwork that I'm going to be coloring in and drawing here in a moment. Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at doing some Kandinsky concentric circles, working with warm and cool color compositions to create little Kandinsky banners. You're gonna need some oil pastels, some black Sharpies, a circle template, and then I've cut my paper into strips, and a little bit we'll also be using some neon colored tempera paints, which are just a little bit transparent for our backgrounds. First thing we always do with our papers, we need to put our names down in the corner. You can do yours with pencil so that it doesn't soak through. I'm using a tiny Sharpie, and your class code. And you can flip it over to the other side, and we're going to be using our larger Sharpies today and our templates because we want to do some circles on this side and some concentric circles on this side. The nice thing about these templates is each of these circles is already a different size. So I can trace one, and then I find the next smaller one. And this is the part that's a little bit trickier. When you're lining up that template, you can see through it just a little bit. I want to try and make this distance between the inside of what I'm about to trace and my other one that I've already traced on here about the same. And I can see it's a little skinnier here than it is on this side. So I'm going to scoot this over just a little bit and down a smidge, and I'm going to look, and it looks about the same distance all the way around. It's not going to be perfect, but it's pretty close. I put my marker inside and I keep it pushed up against the edge. I also hold onto this template so it doesn't move. And there you can see I have a circle inside. I can go one smaller and do the same thing. I'm going to try and make sure that it's equal distance all the way around this edge before I trace it. And then I can even do a little tiny one right there in the middle. I'm going to keep doing this until I have 3 or 4 on this side, skip some space, and then do 3 or 4 on the other side of my paper. So I have some guidelines on here. I'm going to do warm colors on half of my paper, cool colors on the other half of my paper. So I want to look at these, and for my largest cool color, I think my favorite color combination is going to be this one right here. So I'm going to use that on here. I do have some additional circles on here, so I will need to be careful that I pick some other colors or repeat the same pattern. Now I have a large area and I have a smaller oil pastel, so I can lay it flat on the side and I can push firmly. And I can color in a little faster in those large areas using the side. I always have to hold my paper though, so my paper doesn't slip. And it'll fill in most of those gaps, but not all of them. We're using a textured paper. And then I can put it back on the tip or on the edge. And I can go in and I can do those smaller lines very carefully. I do want to firmly push and try and get rid of most of the white spaces. You won't get rid of the white spaces 100% because this is a textured watercolor paper that we're using for this project, and that's okay. But you do want to push firmly enough and smooth enough that you get rid of most of those spots. Tip it, tap it. Then my next color I used was a nice blue color. I'm going to find that blue color. I'm going to go in and add that one into. I'm going to keep working on this until I have all of it repeated in this one. Okay, I've used this one in this pattern. Now I'm going to select a different pattern from my little tester palette up here, and I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to pick a different one to put in each different circle on this half of the page. I finished my cool color side. Now I want to look at my warm palette that I'm going to be using on the other side. Do the same thing. I'm going to use all of these different patterns in my larger picture. Now I have my cool color side, my warm color side. I use the patterns that matched on my worksheet. The next thing I want to do is paint the opposite in my background. I want to paint cool colors on this side, warm colors on this side of my rainbow banner. So let's get the paint and see what that looks like. So for this next part, I have my paint palette. I had to mix a purple with the pink and the blue because I didn't have one. And I want to start with my cool colors on this side. I want to stick with the rainbow. I want to do warm colors on this side. So first color in the rainbow is usually like a red, right? So our red, in this case, since we're using neons, is a pink. So I want to scoop up a lot of pink on my dry paint brush, and I'm just going to paint very gently right on top of everything. And I'm doing this super gently, but I want to fill in all the white spaces to about there. And I want to rinse my brush down in the bottom, push it around carefully. I don't want to tap because that just splatters it everywhere. I want to wipe on the edge, and then I want to take a towel, paper towel works too, and dry it off. Scoop up some of the orange, and I want to start a little on top of the pink and then drag that down and over a little bit. So I do another little patch, just a little into the pink and a little extra that way. Same thing, I wash my brush off, and this stuff likes to stick to the bristles sometimes. That's why we get our paper towel, because when we use that and we pull it off, it takes the paint right off of the brush. Then I'm going to scoop up yellow. That's the next color in the rainbow, and it's still a warm color. And that goes to about the halfway mark of the paper. So about halfway is my yellow. So I have a nice blend from my pink to my orange to my yellow. I'm going to rinse this off, and you'll notice some of it's going on top of your oil pastels. This is a great time to take your paper towel and to blot just right on top of those oil pastels, because it'll lift off the paint, because the oil and the water don't mix, right? There's water in our paint, oil in the pastels. They aren't friends, they don't mix. But you want to be careful just to keep it to those dots, not on the white part of your paper, right? So I use my finger sometimes. I wrap my finger in it like that, really pointy, to get to the small ones, and just dot, dot. Now we can switch over to our cool color side. So we have pink, orange, yellow, green should be our next color. So I'm going to get some green. And I want to paint about a third of this side, one of 3 spaces, because we'll also have blue and purple. And I just gently also swipe it into a little bit of the yellow so that it has that nice blend. Rinse my brush, use the paper towel to completely clean it off, scoop up some of the blue. Same thing, I start a little bit in the green And then I pull the blue down and then a little bit back into the green. I'm being very gentle with this so I don't totally cover up my green. Rinse the brush, pull off the extra. Then I grab some of my purple that I mixed. And I'll start at the end with that purple. And I'm going to go this direction, back and forth. You see I'm keeping my brush going the same direction, back and forth, up and down the whole time. You want to do that too. Then of course, I get my towel and dot, dot, dot all over to pick up the paint so it's not on the oil pastel part. Turn my paper a little so I can reach it easier. And I go just to the edge. I don't want to get rid of the other stuff in the background. Now you have a beautiful banner with our warm and cool colors. And we'll go ahead and we'll put these on the drying rack to put in our e-portfolios next class.